Today we're going to be looking at problems where we have decimals and we're dividing, and we're going to see examples where we need to move the decimal in our problems. In a question like this, where we have a decimal in the first number, the dividend, we can set this problem up regularly and we don't need to make any changes. Okay, so if there's a decimal in the first number, you're okay to go ahead, set the problem up, and divide like you would normally. Okay, so we are going to leave the decimal alone when it's inside the house. Okay, we're going to look at some examples of when we need to adjust the decimal in the problem here on this slide. Okay, in the first problem, you see we have a decimal in the dividend and in the divisor. When there's a decimal in the divisor, we need to shift the decimal to turn this into a whole number. So I'm just moving it like this. And if I'm moving it in the divisor, I'm also going to move it in the dividend. Being careful, I'm only moving it the number of times I did here. So I'm still going to end up with a decimal in the dividend. But again, I'm eliminating the decimal there from the second number, my divisor. So this would be rewritten as 902 4/10 divided by 27. Okay, in the second example, again, it would be okay if there was just a decimal here in the first number, but when we have a decimal in the divisor, I'm going to move it again to turn this into a whole number. I have once, twice, 3 times here. And so I need to move it 3 times in the dividend. Okay. Once I move it once, that would eliminate the decimal. So I'm going to end up with 2 empty spaces because again, I'm moving it 3 times. So we would fill in with 0 placeholders. So this becomes 5,600 divided by 543. In the third example, we can leave this problem exactly as is, okay, because we already have a whole number in our divisor, so we can leave the decimal here in the dividend. Okay, and then the last one, again, I'm looking at just the second place value. However many decimals I see, move it once, twice. So again, in a whole number, the decimal point would be here, so I'm going to end up filling in with zeros. So this one will become 6,300 divided by 28. Okay, let's see what this looks like when we're actually solving a problem. Okay, so as I approach this question, I'm looking at just the divisor to start. I notice there are decimals, so I know I'm going to move those there. And I have 2 decimals here. I'm sorry, I moved it 2 here, so I'm going to move it 2 here. Okay, again, when you're moving the decimal and you have an empty space, we fill that in with a 0. Okay, so 5,880 would be inside. And here we're going to get some practice with a double-digit divisor. Before I start trying to divide, I'm going to take out my calculator and I'm going to list out my multiples of 27. Okay, this is going to help me when I'm setting up the problem. Okay, so one group of 27 is 27. We just saw 2 groups is 54. And we continue doing this. We only need to go up to 9 groups because we're only going to be able to place 1 digit on top as we're dividing. Again, I would continue my list. This is a place where it is okay for you to be using a calculator. Okay, and this is going to help us on our dividing step. Great. I know this might seem a little time consuming, but again, it will be beneficial as you are working through your dividing steps. And again, once I get to 9, I can stop my list there. Okay, when we're dividing with double digits, remember we're following the 4 basic steps: divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Okay, I still tried to go into the first number, so 5 divided by 27 would be 0. And now I'm going to be trying to do 58 divided by 27. Okay, so I'm looking at this list to help me figure out the number of groups I can make, and I'm choosing the number that's closest to 58 but not greater. So that would be 2 groups here. I've already done the multiplication step, okay, because I know 2 times 27 gives me 54, and I'm aligning that underneath the 58 and S subtracting. Great. Bringing down just the 8, not the 8 and the 0. And again, on this step, when I'm dividing, I have 48, and I'm trying to divide that into groups of 27. I'm only able to make 1, okay, because 54, the number for 2 groups, is too many. Subtracting. Bring down the 0. Right, so here I'm doing 210 divided by 27. So looking for what gets me close there. The closest number I see in this list is 189, which would represent 7 groups. Regroup. Okay. Here, once I have a remainder, we're going to turn that remainder into a decimal. And to do that, I add a decimal point in the dividend inside that allows me to add a 0. And once I have a 0, I can just bring the 0 down. Okay, so then I'm going to continue to divide. I know I have already done 210 divided by 27 here. Gives me 7. Okay, and this is actually going to be a repeating decimal, which we'll talk more about later. When you're dividing, I'm only going to be looking for you to extend 2 decimal places in your answer. So once I have added 2 zeros, I can stop dividing. I bring my decimal point up in my answer like so. And again, I would still continue to have a remainder, but for this, we're going to leave that remainder alone, and just the numbers that we have up top are going to be our answer.